I want to talk to you a little bit today about some things that you might want to consider in choosing a self-defense weapon. Just a few little things that most people never think about but are important, and when you look at these things you may decide, oh, I don't think I want that particular weapon, I think I'd like something else. Also, it just gives you kind of a look at some different ones. I think it's good to consider how a weapon functions before you actually choose one, because you have to learn to make that weapon function properly. You're always ready to use that even though you haven't fired it in a while. So this is just some things to think about, things that you might enjoy hearing. I want to show you this little Ruger LCP, or light compact pistol. I've got it in the pocket holster. This fits in my pocket, and this pocket grabs so that if I reach into my pocket and pull out this weapon, I don't have to worry about pulling the trigger, because it's in here where the trigger can't be pulled. And this protects the weapon and keeps it from printing so much, because it kind of displays a different shape than a pistol. You might notice that this particular pistol does not have a safety. That's another reason that it's extremely important to keep that pistol trigger covered, especially in your pocket. And when you draw, you always make sure to keep the finger off that trigger unless you are intending to fire it. For self-defense, I think it's important to have no safety on your weapon like this and know how to use it, or to have a safety where it's on the grip of the gun. Now this little Springfield Arms SD45 right here is the safety. Once I grip this gun, it can be fired, but it's got a trigger safety. You see this little trigger has a middle part that sticks out. If I pull the trigger from the side, it won't fire. It has to be pulled from the middle, so that keeps you from inadvertently firing this without putting your total finger on the trigger. Also, if you've not gripped it and pushed this in, you can pull this trigger all you want and it won't fire. But it doesn't have a safety that you have to pull with your thumb to make it able to fire. And I like this for self-defense, because in a self-defense situation, you don't want to have to be thinking too much. You're more concerned with protecting yourself. One of the guns I really like is my Ruger Security 9. Now it has that trigger safety I was telling you about, but it also has this safety right here. See the red? That means it will fire. It won't fire if that's not, safety is not removed. In a self-defense situation, you could conceivably pull this, forget to hit this safety, and then your gun won't fire. That's why I don't like this kind of gun for self-defense. You have to think too much. It's something you might want to think about. The other thing you might want to think about for self-defense is the size of the gun. This little Ruger is a .380. It's very small, easy to carry, but a .380 is basically a 9mm short, and it carries a really huge punch. You can see the .380 round here, as opposed to the 9mm round. They're the same diameter bullet, but just a little bit smaller, and it should fire just fine into some threat, and both of them will do the job. This XDS 45 ACP Springfield Arms automatic is a good personal defense choice, partly because it's fairly small. It has this grip safety, which means that when you grab it and put your finger in there, you can pull the trigger. But if you don't grab it, you cannot pull the trigger. It also has the trigger safety so that you don't inadvertently hit the edge of the trigger somehow and pull that. This gun holds 5 rounds, and 1 in the chamber makes 6. And that should be a plenty for self-defense. Now you can see in my hand the grip is somewhat small. It shoots fine for me. The recoil is not so much that it's a problem. It's enjoyable to shoot. But for some people, especially people with even larger hands than mine, I wear a large glove, but there are people with bigger hands. They may not like this grip. And you have the option of a larger magazine. This one holds 7 rounds, and 1 in the chamber would be 8. It's a much easier grip. The problem being that when you carry it in a holster, this extra part here makes the gun print, makes it larger. So even though you've got a small weapon, you have a big handle, and it may be something that defeats the purpose for concealed carry. So usually I have this as an extra magazine if I carry extra magazines, but for the first draw, if I ever use it, I carry the smaller one. And it's interesting that in self-defense situations, generally someone is going to be such a threat and so close that you're going to draw this weapon when they're in close range, and 6 shots, 5 in the magazine, 1 in the chamber, should be plenty to repel the threat. You're either going to neutralize the threat or the threat's going to run away. And you're not going to run after them and take another magazine and continue shooting. That would defeat the whole purpose of self-defense. So I'm not sure that the heavy volume is that important as far as ammunition capacity. I think the more important thing is to learn to shoot your weapon so that you're not concerned with the number of rounds you have. You're concerned with proper placement to neutralize the threat against you. Another gun that I like a lot is this 45 ACP. It's an XD 45 from Springfield Arms. You can see it's a full-size pistol. Now that's not going to be pretty much something you're going to choose for concealed carry unless you're wearing an overcoat, maybe in the wintertime, something where something large is not going to show or print to the world that you're carrying. But this one has a huge advantage in that it carries 13 rounds. It's a double stack magazine with 1 in the chamber. That's 14 rounds of 45 automatic. And as you can see, it's quite a bit larger than the XDS. So this was a better gun for concealed carry most of the time. But this is a fun gun to shoot because it fits my hand really well, and it shoots well. First time out of the box, it was just perfect in the way it fired, and I enjoy it. It has the grip safety as well as the trigger safety, and you don't have to fumble with a thumb safety to make sure it's ready to fire. Once you grab that and pull the trigger, it will fire. But if you don't grab it, that trigger will not fire. So you're probably not going to want to carry this as self-defense unless you're wearing like a heavy overcoat or a jacket or something to conceal it. So most of the time that's not going to be your choice. It's a good to carry in your vehicle in case you encounter somebody that's attacking you like a road rage incident, but it's not something you're going to probably want to carry for a lot, like you might be able to carry this as a concealed carry for personal defense. Now, let me get into something else entirely. I like these little semi-automatic pistols. However, they have an inherent problem. All semi-automatic pistols are prone to jamming. And if you don't practice and train with these extensively, you may regret choosing this for personal defense because you may not be able to clear out the jam quickly. You may not be ready for that. You may be a little stunned, and those seconds might be something that will get you killed. I've never had a jam in this particular pistol, but it will jam one day. And when it does, you don't want to be at that moment when you need it for your personal protection when you're fending off an attacker. So what's the choice? The old tried and true revolver is my best answer for self-defense, personal protection. This is a double action, and you don't have to worry about fumbling with safeties. You pull this trigger all the way through, the cylinder rotates, and it will fire 5 times. This is a .357 Magnum. It will shoot .38 special ammunition as well as .357. The recoil is not real big, and unless you're using .357, and at that point it's a little more powerful. I'm not sure there's a real advantage to using .357 in this because of the short barrel, because the powder is still burning after the bullet leaves the barrel, so you don't get that extra advantage of the .357 cartridge as compared to a .38 special. And .38 special is plenty, believe me. I think the .38 special, in my opinion, does more damage than the 9mm. I've shot the .38 special extensively when I was in law enforcement. I carried .38 special plus P plus, and that's a high pressure round, not quite as powerful as a .357 Magnum, but definitely a personal defense round. This has a hammerless feature, which means if you put it in your pocket, it doesn't get caught when you're pulling it out. I carry this in a holster. There's one disadvantage to this. You see the width where the cylinder is? This one is painful to carry in an ankle holster because it will rub it on your ankle. It also is a little more difficult to carry inside the waistband. But as a personal defense weapon, it makes sense because you don't have to worry about it jamming. You pull that trigger, it will fire. I've heard many people say this is a good pistol to choose for women because you don't have to worry about the safety or about whether it'll fire. All they have to do is pull the trigger. I don't understand why they say that, because women are just as smart as men, probably smarter in a lot of ways. And it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. If you don't train with a weapon, you're going to have a problem. And I think what most people are probably misidentifying here is that many women don't shoot weapons like men do. It seems like in this area, most of the people I know that shoot a lot are men. But believe you me, some of the best marksmen I've ever shot with were females. And it's not because of their sex, it's because that they train, and because either male or female, you can have good eye-hand coordination, which is required to get the good sight picture to make sure your shots are accurate. So this has nothing to do with whether you're a male or a female. Carrying a revolver is a good idea if you don't train a lot with your semi-automatic concealed carry pistol. I pretty much recommend a revolver, man or woman, for anybody that carries concealed and that doesn't have the opportunity to train a lot. It's sort of foolproof.